test shot. This is a test run. So, test run.
Test run?
Yeah,
Okay.
test run.
So this is probably the first time anyone's done a podcast, started a podcast in a KTX.
No, I bet you there are YouTubers. Who've done it.
Oh yeah, probably.
But not from the
YouTubers.
entrepreneurship angle.
No.
Yeah, and we're talking like pretty quietly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, let's test
Okay.
this. Hello. Hello to the second podcast.
Hi everyone. I'm Tommy. I'm a friend of Sam's. He's kind of forcing me to do this. We're on our way to Daejeon in a KTX, and he just whipped out his phone and his crazy gadgets, and he's forcing me to do this.
I think what's fun is like, I think when you're on these types of adventures, it's like when we sat down, and I was like, hey, I always thought like it'd be kind of fun to do a podcast recording on the train. Or yesterday I was thinking about this. I was like, oh, this would be kind of fun. And you were like, okay, like right away, no hesitation. You're like, cool, okay. And I gotta say, that's like, if you didn't do that, if you were like a little hesitant, I probably would have been like, okay. Like even me, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do this, but you were like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, okay. And I think like that's the power of like doing things with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And like speaking of that, I mean, I love spontaneity. Like all my closest friends, they always say that I'm so spontaneous because you have the best experiences when you're spontaneous, when you do things sort of out of the blue, you know? And I also feel like it helps you grow because you're sort of outside your element, outside your comfort zone, and that's how you grow. So I was like, sure, why not?
So, Tommy, where are we going?
We are going to Daejeon.
Where are we going from?
What?
Because they don't know where we are.
Right now?
I don't know. They might not know.
Yeah,
the
your
viewer
audience
might have.
could
Yeah,
be,
I mean, we
because
don't
this
know.
is, yeah.
Yeah, they
this
could
is
be
global,
from
right?
Alaska.
Yeah.
Well, YouTube is global. So
Yeah. We're in Seoul, Korea, and we're taking a KTX down to a city that's about, what, 2 hours away? Called
I
Daejeon?
think by car it's about 2 hours. Can we raise this?
Yeah.
So they get to see outside too.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're headed to a startup event. Is it like a demo day or something where we're judging?
Yeah. I think like the city of Daejeon is hosting or something like that. Like Korean startups are going to pitch to us. We're going to be the judges, and I forget where, but they're going to basically be going outside of Korea. So they're actually going to be pitching in English, which is cool. So yeah.
Yeah, thank God it's not in Korean. I would be asking 0 questions.
Yeah, so our both of our wives have been gracious enough to allow us to go. Got a baby. I got 2 kids. But I think I was telling you like why I said yes to this opportunity. I think it's just about like exploration. I think that that's been one of our themes here in Korea. Like normally, I feel like in the U.S. I would be a little bit more in my comfort zone and just this is out of my comfort zone. Like going to another city to do a judge, and I don't know what's gonna happen with that. So I'm just like I'd probably say no. But in Korea, I'm just like, why not say yes? Like let's see what happens.
Yeah, you're all about sort of the experiences and exploring things here, right? I'm a little less so. I think I was like that initially. So there's definitely a honeymoon phase when you move to Korea, and I don't know if you're past that yet. But when I was first, I want to say like the first 2-3 years, I was just exploring, traveling everywhere, and just going from like checking out all the bars and clubs and stuff, and going on little mini vacations like outside the city and stuff.
How old were you when you came to Korea?
I was, this was like 2012, so how old was I? That was 12 years ago, so I was like 30, 29, 30 is when I came.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I think you literally came from the U.S.
Yeah.
But you're not American.
No, I'm Canadian, so
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Well, tell the
yeah,
people
so
about a little bit yourself.
I'm not that interesting,
Oh,
but
shut up.
yeah, but
Very interesting.
yeah, I mean, I grew up most of my life in Canada since at a very young age, and then I decided to, for some odd reason, I decided to go to law school, right? So, like, okay, law, the market is bigger in the U.S., so I went to law school in the U.S. I worked there for a few years, and then I've always wanted to. I'm sure it's kind of like you too, but I'm sure you had the same feeling, and I'm sure a lot of Korean Americans have the same feeling. But we want to experience life in Korea at some point in our lives, like
Yeah, definitely.
not just go to school there, but actually live and work, and just really immerse ourselves and experience Korean life. And so, I had a very that feeling was very strong at that time, and so I just moved. I was fortunate enough to get a job here at a law firm, and I was like, Mom and Dad, I'm going to Korea. Um,
So just to be clear, your parents are both Korean,
they're both
and
Korean
they immigrated to
to
Canada
Canada.
from Korea.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Um,
they left their hometown. They sacrificed like crazy and started over in a new world in Canada to give you a better life, so that you can go right back to Korea.
exactly. So it's funny because my dad was kind of against it.
He's like,
He was kind of against me going to Korea, and I think for that reason, it's like, oh, like Korean American parents, like they sacrifice a lot, like immigrant families, right? And my dad was, like normal immigrant family dads, and he worked hard. He worked like several jobs and all this stuff to give me a better education overseas outside of Korea, and so he was somewhat against me coming back to Korea.
I mean,
But
I feel like if I were your dad, I wouldn't be somewhat against it. I'd be like, F you, you're not going. Do you know how much I suffered? Do you know how
Yeah,
much times I faced racism in this country? Do you know how many
exactly.
times like I felt like I was gonna be a failure and I made the wrong decision all for you?
Yeah,
No.
yeah. But you know what's weird though? Like even to this day, like when I talk to my parents, my mom always wants to come back to Korea. Like
Oh
she
really?
loves Korea. Yeah.
How long have they been out?
They've been away, I don't know, like what, like 30 something years or something. Like
Uh,
my mom would visit every, I don't know, like once every 2, 3 years for like several weeks.
does she still visit?
She still visits. She's actually coming next month
Oh
for
really? Oh
for a
nice.
full month this time because of my son. She misses. She wants to see
So she's staying with you guys.
my son. Yeah, she's staying with us. So my mom loves Korea, but my dad hates Korea.
Oh.
Like he even to see his grandson. So he's never seen. So my son is 2 years old, almost 2 years old, and my dad hasn't seen him yet. And even to see him, he wouldn't come. He's like, I'm not getting on a plane and I'm not going to Korea, which is
So it's not
weird.
like fear of planes or anything.
No,
Okay.
it's nothing like that. He just doesn't want to be in Korea.
I've heard of people like that, and well, not like that, but I've heard of especially like immigrants who haven't been to Korea, or for many many years, like 10 decades.
Mhm.
Their concept of Korea is still frozen in time. Like
Yes,
they
yes,
remember Korea when they left, which was 1980, 70, 60, or whatever. So the view that they have of Korea is frozen. And so it's all their biases, all their negative things, whatever. Even if it's completely changed, it doesn't matter. In their minds, it is still like frozen in time.
absolutely. And what I noticed is that my parents are a lot more conservative than Korean parents are, like parents in Korea are, because of exactly what you said. Their thoughts are because back in the 30, 40 years ago in Korea, this is a very conservative society. And
광명역을 앞두고 신호대기로 잠시
it's
광명역.
광명역? Yeah.
Oh God, we arrived at a station.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're going to. Yeah, we're still few. I think we got like 45 minutes more
45
minutes.
minutes. Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was like 2 hours. But
Just-
anyways, yeah,
Just
I was
checking it's recording.
yeah. But anyways, I was saying like that's exactly the reason why, because they're frozen back like in time, like back in the 80s or whatever, where it was very conservatives. Korea was very conservative, so they still have that mindset. Um, so that was very interesting, because I came to Korea and I see these parents that are like super modern, super progressive and stuff.
What does modern and progressive mean to you? And what does
Um,
conservative mean to you? Like, can you give a few examples?
yeah, so conservative, let's say for example, right? Jobs. My dad was he used to always harp on you have to have a good salary and you have to work at one company for a very, very long
Got it.
time.
Okay. Yeah.
So like when I left,
It's very
when I,
Korean.
it's very,
I think like Korean parents really they push people to. It's like kind of the American equivalent, like IBM, go to the big companies, work for the government or whatever. Korea too. Also, they push either to the government
sure, government,
or
yeah,
go to the big corporation, which is called the Taegi-ups, like
exactly, yeah,
Samsung, Hyundai,
yeah,
and work there for 30, 40 years, retire,
yeah,
and you'll live a good life.
yeah, exactly. So my parents were all about um, living a comfortable life, living a stable life, working at one company for all your life. And so I was fortunate enough to work at one of the biggest law firms in Korea called Kim Chang, and my parents were extremely proud. Like,
Which, by the way, when I came to Korea and you told me that,
yeah,
I had never heard of them,
hmm
but apparently, like they are top dog in Korea.
yeah,
Like they're the top law firm.
yeah,
You got into Kim and Chang, you're good.
yeah, yeah. So my parents were ecstatic, and
Wait, why were they ecstatic? Were they ecstatic because you made it, or were they also ecstatic because they can brag? Maybe both.
It's a really good question because it's the latter.
No kidding.
100% the latter.
But you just said the former is what they cared about.
Yeah, but it's weird. Like they were so that is kind of a given for them. So they weren't expecting me to work at such a big firm, because I'm not like the smartest guy ever. But they were expecting me to work for like just a mid-sized or small firm for the rest of my life.
We'll take you.
Yeah,
Fine.
yeah. So, but then I was like, yeah, I got a job at Kim Chang, and then they were like, oh, okay. As soon as I said that, they started like calling their family, like relatives and stuff, like, hey, my son is. They were bragging, to like everyone, even like far relatives.
Yeah, you know that son that I told you was dumb? He actually made it.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
Kim
exactly,
Chang.
exactly. And they were so proud, right? And then I left. I left Kim Chang. I decided to leave. And
Tell me about the experience in Kim
At Kim
Chang.
Chang?
Like,
So-
because okay, one of the things that I think the audience may not know is
Yeah.
what Korean work culture is. If they're known for anything, is they're friggin' intense. They're super intense, and I feel like as Korean Americans, we've heard of the Korean work culture as just being super intense.
Mhm.
But honestly, I think I didn't understand what that level of intensity was until you started telling me stories from Kim and Chang, which are apparently like very normal,
Mhm.
right?
Well, it's normal at Kim and Chang and a few of the other big law firms, as well as the conglomerates. Other companies like SMEs, it's not like that. Especially nowadays, the laws have changed. The employment laws have changed, where it's like you have to do
Right.
kaite,
But
which
when
is,
you
know,
came,
yeah.
but when you came, tell me about it. Like,
Yes.
what was what was working
Yeah.
in Kim and Chang's life?
Yeah.
We're just a big law firm.
Yeah. So you basically sell your soul and your time. So like, at
It's a fair trade. They're saying we'll give you this big, compensation.
yeah.
Yeah, and then in return, this is what we expect from you.
Yeah, but in fact, I did some calculation when I was at Kim and Chang, and I calculated the number of hours I worked, and my salary, and my hourly rate was like $12 or something like that. I was making like $12
I
an
heard the
hour.
same thing because coming out of business school, you hear people who go to consulting or especially investment banking.
Mhm.
Investment banking, they make tons of money, 500,000, 700,000, whatever.
Yeah.
But you look at the number of hours they work, and same thing. They said they calculated their hourly wage, and it was less than McDonald's.
It was less than McDonald's, really.
Although lately, McDonald's actually has started paying pretty high. But anyway, that's beside the point.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean a typical
Yeah,
so
typical day.
let's say I was like let's say it was a busy sort of period, right? A typical day would be I'd be in by about 9
When you wake up, like
when I wake up.
yeah, start for that.
Yeah, so I'd wake up at like what, 7:30, 8, and then I'd get ready in like literally 15, 20 minutes.
And
It
you
just
live
really
close to the office.
No, no, no. I used to live about 30 minutes away. So
Public transportation.
yeah, I'd take public
Yeah. So
transportation.
Korea is specifically Seoul. It's very metro. It's a city center.
Yeah.
Kind of like New York City. Everything's
Yeah.
connected.
Right.
So
Right.
easy to use public transportation.
Right. So I used to live south of the river, Gangnam, but the Kim Chang office was in Jongno, which is north of the river.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's like right by where I live.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
so I'd just take the orange line all the way up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait, where would you get off?
I got off at Gyeongbokgung. Is that where you live?
That's where I get off.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where
What the heck?
you walk around there, you'll see people in suits, right? They're all Kim Chang people. You see
What?
people in suits that look like lawyers. They're
Wait,
all Kim Chang people.
Wait, where's the office?
They have about 8 buildings in that area, Jongno and Gwanghwamun area.
Is it south of Gwanghwamun? Because I
it's-
literally get off
it's-
Gyeongbokgung. Like yeah.
Yeah, so there are 2 offices like on the Gyeongbokgung, almost connected to the Gyeongbokgung station.
Oh, okay.
So one's called like Northgate or something like that,
Okay,
and then
got it.
yeah. So you just walk down that street, and then you'll see there are like several other buildings that Kim and Chang occupies.
Got it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
so,
Well, anyway, we'll talk more about that later.
yeah, yeah.
So you walk into the office.
Yeah, yeah. So I walk into the office and I'm checking emails, but they're
It's like 9 a.m.
it's like 9 a.m.
Okay.
But there are literally, I want to say every day I got at least, like when I walked into the office, I got at least like 50 to 100 emails that I needed to review one by one throughout the day.
How many emails?
Like 50 to 100 emails
Okay.
that aren't just like things that I can just like look at and delete, but they're actual substantive emails I needed to review and reply to.
And by the way, like I want to note, like in Korea,
Mhm.
you were licensed as a lawyer in America.
In the US, yeah.
Right, right. So when you come to Korea, your law degree does not transfer. You're not that it's not recognized
No,
here.
no.
But this is kind of a new concept that I think you told me about is Korean corporations or law firms will employ foreign lawyers
Mhm.
to advise them with clients that are doing business there. They're called like
Foreign legal consultants.
foreign legal consultants.
Yeah.
Okay.
So FLC is the abbreviation, and so I was an FLC at Kim and Chang, and so all the clients that I was responsible for were foreign clients, overseas clients, so the U.S., Europe, and so on.
And the reason I bring this up is, even though that is the case, that your knowledge, they hired you because of your expertise in U.S. law, I'm assuming the all the emails, they are in Korean.
They're in Korean or English. The emails from clients would be in English, and emails from internal other colleagues like lawyers and stuff that I work with, their team, they're all in Korean.
So this is like the mind blowing part of me, because like I studied abroad at Yonsei University for a year, and I mean, but my classes were in English, and then I took some Korean classes. But like, I've heard of people who take actual classes in Korean, and I'm like, I don't know how you do that. Like, read Korean,
Mhm.
write Korean. I'm like, dude, my reading and writing is like at like first grade level.
Yeah.
But you were at a professional level. You
Yeah.
were sending email, but I remember you explaining to me that not only that, you were reviewing contracts
Contracts and case law, like case precedents,
In
like court
Korean.
decisions and stuff in Korean. Yeah.
in Korean.
Yeah.
That blew my mind.
Well, I had to. It was like survival mode. Otherwise, I couldn't do my job.
Oh, actually, okay, how about this? When you started, how good was so if you were, for example, native fluent in Korean, then not a big deal.
Mhm.
Okay. But what was your level when you got there?
Yeah. So my level was like you said, it was like elementary level, right? So I moved.
Crazy.
Yeah, I immigrated. I immigrated to Canada when I was 5 years old, so I had no schooling here, right? But the thing is, I came to Korea, and I wasn't even when I came to Korea. My level was basically I couldn't read a newspaper article without I could only understand about like 20-30% of what a newspaper
I mean,
article is saying.
newspaper articles is really hard.
It is hard because they do use very like concise language
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, so my level was very, very basic, right? I couldn't write like I couldn't write an email basically.
That's crazy.
But I was forced to do it, and so literally I had Naver Dictionary. Naver Dictionary was a thing back then. Like this was before Papago and DeepL and stuff. Naver
Which
Dictionary.
Papago and DeepL, they're both apps like largely powered by AI
Yes.
now
Yeah.
that almost everybody uses here in Korea, or foreigners use in Korea to translate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Papago's not so good anymore. DeepL's okay
Yeah.
because I've been testing a lot of them these days. The best is actually ChatGPT 4.0, the
Really?
newest one. Yeah.
Oh,
If you tell it to translate into Korean or vice versa,
Okay.
it's actually better. But anyways, yeah. So I would literally have Naver Dictionary open, and I would read an email or like a court decision or something in Korean, and every word that I didn't understand, which was literally like every third word I didn't understand, I would put it into Naver Dictionary, and I would translate into English, and then I'd understand it and go on and on and on. So like a court decision could be like what 10 pages. It took me literally like at first it took me 3-4 hours to get through it just to understand it. And maybe that's why I worked such long hours initially, but I had to go through it. I had to go through it because otherwise I couldn't do my job. But the interesting thing was within a year of doing that, like maybe less than a year, because the legal terms are very
same thing.
Yeah, it's the same
Like
terms.
boilerplate.
Yeah, over and over again. So there's like terms of art that lawyers use, even in English, but Korean's is exact same thing. So once you learn that term, it comes up over and over again, and then you start to build sort of a term bank, and then now I'm able to read it and get sort of at least a general gist of what the court is saying,
I think that's like
things like that.
I think that's like an amazing commentary on humanity and just how adaptable we are to different circumstances. Just like, I mean, we talk about the immigrant experience where immigrants are going to a new country, they have to adapt. Like you reverse immigrating, coming to Korea, and it's not just you're just hanging out. You are working with native Korean, and they expect you to work at their level. Like I'm assuming they're
Yeah.
not like, you know, being gentle with you, like, oh, you're from Canada, U.S. Like, you don't need to know all this stuff. Like,
Yeah. Are we back?
yeah, we're back.
Okay.
I
What
forgot
were we
were
talking about? I remember we were talking about something very boring.
Oh no, it was
Numbers.
schools. It was
Schools.
what schools?
Yeah. So Kim Chang is like top of the top at like the top university that
Oh.
make it in, right?
From
The U.S. lawyers, right?
foreign
Foreign
legal
lawyers.
consultants.
Yeah,
Yeah,
foreign legal consultants. There are, I think there's still about 200 to 250 foreign lawyers there at the firm. I don't know. I mean, there's a big mix of schools, like,
It's like typical
there's
like
some,
Harvard,
yeah,
Stanford.
there's some like Harvard people, Stanford people. There's some like sort of obscure schools, third tier schools. They're there. I don't think for foreign lawyers, Kim Chang has like 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 the highest standards for law schools. I think like they do in Korea.
I mean, I just think that it's because Korea. I mean, it's much easier to recruit foreign people. You'd have to convince them to move to Korea
Yeah,
and work, and they have to be like bilingual and stuff. So I feel like the candidate pool is probably much
yeah.
smaller.
That
That's
could
why I
be
was
it.
kind of curious.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I don't think they have the luxury of course, if they can get a Harvard grad, I would imagine it would be like a Korean who studied in America or something.
Yeah.
Maybe that, but like someone
Yeah.
like you, I feel like were there people like you, a bunch of people like you?
Yes.
Really?
There are a lot of people like me there. Yeah. Yeah.
And why were they coming to Korea? Same reason as you?
Probably same reason as me. I don't know. Or they had some like other ties here, that whatever the reason. Yeah. There were a lot of them. A lot of people like me, like gyopos that wanted to experience life in Korea. And so, yeah, but I guess going back to sort of working
Yeah,
with,
typical day.
yeah, but before that, like, I think working, I wanted to make a point where, it was hard. Looking back, it was hard because I was working with these
Like the
top
elites.
people,
Yeah.
elites, and I wasn't like that.
Why
And
why
so
why
they
did
had
you say
like
that?
high standards, and they were
Okay.
super super smart, and it was hard to keep up with them. I feel that now. Looking back, I really feel like I had a hard time with that, keeping up with that. But yeah, you start to get used to it, and you start to get to their level. But it was a hard sort of transition period for me to get to that sort of level. Yeah, yeah. Um, and then, like, yeah, typical day, like when I'm really busy. So yeah, in the morning, go through emails, and then all day we have meetings about cases and stuff. It's like literally from 11 a.m. To like 5 6 p.m. It's like meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. So you don't get to do actual work. The actual work starts after the meetings, which is like 6 p.m. 5 6 p.m. And so I'm like, drafting, legal memos or like briefs or whatever, until probably about like 10 p.m. when I'll have conference calls with clients in the U.S. because that's when their morning is. So I'll work for like 3 4 hours, and then 10 p.m. I'll have like 1 or 2 calls with clients, and then it's like midnight, and then I'll do another like 3 4 even 5 hours of work to
Oh
get done
my
for that day,
gosh.
and then I go home.
We're talking about 5 a.m.
5 a.m. There were many times when I went home at 5 a.m. during the busy periods.
5 a.m.
5
And
a.m.
then
Yeah,
when you got home,
yeah.
you slept for
Slept for like 2 3 hours, then I'd be back at it, and
and,
this would go on for like 3 or 4 months during busy periods. It was insane. Like, it was just too crazy. I
how
could
long
never
were
do
you
that
there?
now.
How long were you there?
I was there like a little over 6 years.
And were there people with like families
Yeah,
that
there
were
were
living
people with
this lifestyle?
families. Yeah,
So I guess their kids just didn't see them.
their kids, their wives just didn't see them. That's why
That's crazy.
the divorce rate at that firm is very high.
Oh, so I
Yeah,
heard the divorce rate in Korea is very high.
in Korea, in general, very high. But the I think the general divorce rate in Korea is like 50%, around 50%. At Kim and Chang, it's like, at least from the people I know, it's like over 60, 70%. Because they just never get to see their family,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the wives and kids, they're just literally living alone.
yeah. I mean, it's a
And
tough situation. Like I think Kim and Chang, as a firm, they say we'll offer you the best brand name, we'll offer you the best clients, all this experience, prestige, and big compensation package.
mhm.
But in return, like you said,
Yeah, I mean, you have to sacrifice one thing. You have to sacrifice some things to get that. But overall, like, it was the greatest experience of my life. Looking
wow.
back, it was the greatest experience of my life. I learned so much, and I feel like I grew so much, and I'm always very thankful for that experience. And so I keep in touch with people at Kim and Chang, some of the higher ups that I worked with, and I know, we'll meet. I'll catch up with them every like quarter or something. And I always just thank them for the experience, because not many people get that kind of opportunity to work with such, you know, uh, people, but also work at such a firm, like a top firm like that. Um, it's a rare opportunity, and I was somehow able to get it, and so I don't care how tough it was. Looking back, it was just like it was one of the best experiences of my life.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what led to that season of your life starting to close and you thinking
Mm,
about the next thing? Like,
yeah.
how did that come about?
So I wanted to, lawyers have certain practice areas, right? and my practice area was intellectual property, chemical regulatory compliance, environmental, um, client crisis management, things like that. I got interested in IT, tech, and so I wanted to expand my experience in technology.
Why did you get interested? What was the spark? Or was
I,
it a
I,
gradual thing?
I think it was just a gradual thing. I don't know what it was. I can't like pinpoint what sort of that trigger point was, but um, maybe it was just all this talk around me, people about talking about technology and IT and things like that, and software
Were
that
there
just
any
got me
specific
interested.
like tech things, like specific companies or specific technologies or specific products that
Not
kind of got you
really,
excited?
not really. I think it's just one of those things where, oh, it's like a hot area, so like, oh, I want to get into that practice area kind of thing because this is a hot area. And so I got interested in it. I did it. I did some of it at Kim Chang, but I wanted to sort of expand my knowledge of IT, legal issues and stuff. And so there was an opportunity at Coupang, and so I
Can
went.
you give a little background on who Coupang is? The high level
Ah,
background
yeah,
is they are it was founded by Kim, I think,
Kim, yeah.
who's a Harvard Business School graduate. Um, I thought he was like complete like
He dropped
me.
out, I think. He
Oh,
dropped
he
out
dropped out.
of
Oh.
Harvard Business School. But anyways,
But I don't. I thought he was like me, like completely born and raised in America or in another country. But from what I heard, I think he was like actually born and raised in like Korea. Or
yeah,
so,
I'm not sure.
okay, so
I'm not
I don't
sure.
know.
Yeah.
But anyway, he founds a company, Coupang. I didn't know this until before I came here, but they're basically the Amazon of Korea. But not only that, because Korea is so small, they can do things that Amazon cannot. So, for example, they can do like they have this like magical experience where if you let's I think the storytelling was really great. It was like you're a mom and uh, you're about to go to sleep, but you see the weather forecast and you realize it's raining tomorrow, and this is like 11 p.m. and you're like, oh crap, our kid, I don't have an umbrella. My kid doesn't have an umbrella. So you go into the Coupang app. Oh, you see an umbrella, and it will deliver the next day at 6 a.m. or something
Yeah,
like that.
by
Before 6
seven,
a.m.
yeah, before 7 a.m.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before 7 a.m. And so they go to sleep, wake up, boom, there's the umbrella, and you're the savior.
Yeah.
You're the
Yeah.
super mom.
Yeah.
And I was like, and that's I think pretty interesting because once again, like because Korea is such a densely packed thing. Number one, how do you deal with that much demand of how do you consistently ship at like and create this magical experience? So I think that's what Coupang is known for.
Yeah. No, I think you're right on the mark there. It was I was actually very amazed by like some of that progress that they made in terms of like getting deliveries faster and faster and faster to the customer's door. And the reason why they're able to do that is because Korea is so dense, like you said. Like Korea is very mountainous, so there's only a limited area where people can live, and so it's very, very condensed, like especially Seoul,
Interesting. So the terrain of Korea pushes people to certain
to
livable
certain
areas,
livable areas.
as opposed to
Exactly.
like the mid I don't know the middle of America where it's just flat plain.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah. And so it's so condensed that Coupang has strategically placed big, they call it mega warehouses, really big warehouses that are the size of like 10 or 15 like soccer fields or something like that. And that's where they hold all their inventory. And then they have camps, which, they'll take some of the inventory and bring it into smaller camps in certain areas, and then that's where they deliver to um to the customers. And they have a massive network of warehouses and camps where they're able to deliver things
You
within
have to
like
be like super street. Like so, I was a logistics officer, and I know a little bit about it. It's been a long time since I've done it, but the idea of like pre-positioning certain materials, in order to do that, like I need to know that in your city likes this type of soda,
Mhm.
and so in order to get the delivery time down, I either have to, um, I need to know that in advance and then pre-position those there.
Yeah.
But also, this is not static demand. It's suddenly something can happen and there's a spike and they need to know all this.
Yeah.
It's like there's a ton of work of data and
Yeah.
it's quite complex. It's a
Yeah.
quite complex stance.
It's very complex. You're right. So like one example that I experienced at Coupang was during Chuseok. Chuseok was when there's like the spike in
Yeah, what Chuseok is like Korean Thanksgiving or something?
Korean Thanksgiving. Chuseok is Korean Thanksgiving. It's Chuseok soon actually.
Oh, yeah. It's in like
Chuseok
2
in
weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah.
And Chuseok, the idea is like generally like Thanksgiving,
It's
people
Thanksgiving,
just like
yeah.
mass migration back to their hometowns.
Yeah.
I think China also has like a holiday like that too, where there's just mass migration back to their hometowns.
Right, exactly. And so that's where all the orders sort of spike up just before Chuseok and during Chuseok basically. And there was this time where they were lacking delivery people, because there's so many
Oh,
orders.
yeah.
So they asked just regular employees, hey, can you go?
Wait, did you do it?
I did it. I volunteered for
What?
one day. I just got into a delivery truck. I wore
Did they
like the
like pay
Coupang
you
hat and
extra
stuff.
or anything?
Nah, they didn't pay me extra. They paid me like a normal salary, but
Okay, so they
it was
just
just for the experience. I just did it, but they needed people, so I was like,
that's
all right,
crazy.
I'll experience that.
Wait,
So
were there leadership as well doing this kind of stuff?
yeah, there was like heads of people that
That's
did it,
cool.
and it was really cool.
That's cool. That's
I really
cool.
enjoyed the experience.
That's like
'Cause-
really motivating, especially when you're like in a time crunch. If the leadership just says like, "Oh, we're in a time crunch," you do it. As opposed, but when you're like on the front lines, like that's when you really like inspire people. Like you're working side to side with
exactly.
like the head of a
Yeah.
department.
Yeah.
You're like, oh shoot, like you're just like me.
Yeah. Like as sort of a subordinate, if my superior just volunteered for that, I would be like you said, I'd be inspired, and I would want to just naturally volunteer as well. But yeah, I mean, I just volunteered, and then just there was a truck driver, and I was next to him, and I was doing delivering walking up apartments and delivering packages, and it's going back to sort of the complexity of all behind all this. Even filling the truck, you do it in there's a certain sort of system
Oh, wow.
of where they place certain products.
That's crazy.
Depending on the route, right? Because you want to put the closest delivery destination. Those packages need to be outside, right?
It's like a crazy level of
so
optimization.
you work
Dang.
yourselves. You work towards the back. At the end of the route, it's like everything is in the back, and you just pull it out. You go back to the camp, and so I found that to be like, wow, they have like a real good system in place.
It reminds me of like what Elon Musk says about like making prototypes of like electric vehicles or really cool prototypes. Prototypes are very easy, but to do it at production scale is like hell. It's like so hard. So I think like what you're saying, like to do something like this as a prototype within like one neighborhood block, that's it's a magical experience. But to then scale that out and make it in production everywhere, and now you're going to every neighborhood in Korea, then they have to like, but that's like quite amazing.
Yeah, it was really amazing. Yeah. So I mean,
So you weren't delivering boxes there. That's not why they hired you.
yeah,
Let's go from Kim Chang lawyer to
to delivery
delivery
man.
man.
Yeah.
And not that there's anything bad about.
Although I did like that was sort of a running joke that I would say like every new
Yeah.
person I met, I was like, yeah, I work at Coupang. I'm a delivery man, and then they would give me this like weird look. But yeah, not that there's anything wrong with
Yeah.
that. I actually really admire and respect what they do, because I've done it for a day.
Yeah.
And, like I know how hard it is.
Totally.
And so I really respect them. But
So,
yeah.
so
I was
how
in
did you? Yeah, what was the journey from you to going to Coupang? Like, were you looking at other companies and stuff?
Yeah. So I just applied. I was looking at different sort of IT companies that I could work for to transition to, and then Coupang, they were very actively hiring.
This is when? What year?
This was 2018, so I was
Okay, so
there
this-
from 2018 to 2022
And they IPO'd. They were one of the few Korean companies that IPO'd in
Yes.
America.
in America, one of the few. and so they were pre-IPO when I joined, and that was another. We good? Yeah, that was another sort of thing that enticed me to go there. Was that pre-IPO companies, you need to prepare a lot, like legally, and not just legally, but just business-wise as well. But legally, it's very important to make the right preparations for the IPO, and I got to experience all that, like just the whole steps of how to prepare a company to successfully IPO, and that was an interesting experience at Coupang, and
How was there? How was that transition for you? Because like you went from a very intensive legal
yeah,
thing. I mean, this is still legal, but
yeah, it was
I would assume it's
completely
different.
different. Yeah, it's completely different. So like, one difference between lawyers at law firms, or the roles of lawyers at law firms and lawyers in-house. So we say in-house lawyers,
Right.
which are lawyers that work at
Is that different than general counsel?
general counsel is an in-house lawyer that's like the head
Oh, I see.
of the legal
I see.
team.
Got it.
Yeah, that's general counsel.
Okay.
So my role there was associate general counsel for technology and transactions.
Okay, and paint the picture. Like, how big was the general in-house lawyer team?
Oh, dude. So like when I joined, it was like the wild, wild west because I think I was like the fifth or sixth lawyer to join the team. Now they have like over 200 lawyers there, so it grew tremendously. But when I was there, I was like one of the first few, and so
And so you use the term "wild, wild west." Like, there's 6 lawyers now. There's 200, but there's 6 lawyers. Like, what does that mean?
yeah,
What was wild, wild west? Like, what are some like examples?
right. So like they were growing tremendously. So at that point, it was the fastest growing e-commerce company in the world.
Oh wow. I
And
didn't
so
know
they were
that.
growing so fast. And if a company is growing fast, there are fast growing legal issues as well. So it sort of, tags along, legal issues kind of tag along with the growth of the company. And so there were a lot of legal issues that were popping up.
I see. Because
But
basically business is pushing them to grow,
yeah,
and then but like it reminds me of Uber. Like Travis Kalanick, like he
hmm
would kind of sometimes be in violation of certain rules, but he
hmm
would just move so fast, get a ton of demand, and then lobby the government to change the rules,
right,
like stuff
right.
like that. But
Yeah, yeah,
you have to be a maverick.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, it was similar at Coupang. So they were just growing, they were doing stuff, but they weren't sure if this was actually legal or not, but they were just doing stuff, and then the legal systems and things within the company sort of followed the growth. And the reason why I call it Wild Wild West was because there were only a few lawyers there that were trying to handle this growth of legal issues. So I was being pulled left and right, like just all kinds of random things, and it was really exciting. I actually really enjoyed that because I got to learn a lot,
You have this like
within a short
pattern of
time
you
frame.
of like you're like a masochist. Like you're just a glutton for
I
pain.
love pain. Give me pain. No, I mean, in all seriousness though, like
But I think it's not maybe not,
pain.
not the pain that you liked, but it was what resulted from the pain.
Exactly.
That kind of almost validated the pain.
Yeah, I love reflecting on that stuff. Like when I go through a painful experience or some kind of hardship in my life, I love like looking back and thinking about what I learned from it, and that gives me a sense of sort of sense of happiness that I learned something from a hardship, but also that it prevents fear from my next hardship. Does that make sense? So like I'm not scared of hardship anymore because I know I'm going to learn something. But anyways,
And by
um,
the way, but we'll probably have to break this into part 2 because
okay,
we're gonna have
yeah.
to talk about your startup.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
anyway,
yeah,
we'll,
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
let's just take the
My
leisure.
my startup, yeah, my
Yeah,
startup
let's take
is,
no, we're still on Coupang. We're
yeah,
still on
dude.
Coupang.
My startup was, yeah.
Um,
It's not much I can say about
oh
that. But
come on,
anyways,
there's
yeah,
tons,
Coupang,
there's tons. But
yeah.
I think like the fact that your attitude is actually quite unique in the
Mm,
sense that I feel like people react to pain in very different ways. Like me coming to I also kind of I feel like I can empathize with that. Like there are many moments in my life, whether it's in military boot camp or coming to Korea or whatever, where it was just massive amounts of pain, and I hated the pain. However, massive growth. Like the I feel like you can only grow and enjoy life as much as you felt the pain, because that's like the extent, the scope of that you can experience life. And so I think, but having that attitude is very hard, because pain can also lead to anger. Like what the f, like like whether it's aimed at God, saying like, God, why did you let this happen, or just blaming other people. It can it can go devolve into cynicism, right? It can be very cynical about the world. But you you went in more positive route, and because of that, it almost like grows you, not like linearly. It's almost like exponential of growth, because it compounds. Like the learnings compound.
Yeah.
And as you have a positive experience from this, not only that, you become more aggressive at like going for the next experience rather than shying away. Because I think I could see the total opposite. It could compound negatively and just be like, I'm never touching that, anything like that again. I'm gonna stay in my comfort zone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I saw that in me, but I definitely saw it in you. The more I got to know you, you're the type of person that is very good at reflecting on stuff, right? And that's what you need to do with painful experiences, is that you look back and reflect on it, and you learn, right? So that's
But
something that's
how do
like
you
very
make sure,
characteristic of
like when
you.
you reflect that on that painful experience, you're reflecting on that? It was crazy, right? I mean, I'm sure like if we interviewed you when you were at Coupang, you'd be like, like hairs on fire. But like, or were you, or did you know, like in the moment when you were, in it, like you were like, this is crazy, but I love it? Or did it take time later, like you needed some time away from it?
No, I was just really enjoying it at the moment. Like I was just like, wow, because the thing is, like, for me, if I'm pulled into um, situations that I'm not ready for, and my counterparts or people that pull me in know that, they're like, oh, this is urgent, just come and do this for us. Yeah, I actually feel like really comfortable because I know that I can't really fuck up. You know what I mean? Like it's like, yeah, I mean, I wasn't really prepared for this, so I'll do what I can.
By
And
the way,
so,
that is a very unique perspective, because another person, so you're like, there's no way but up. Actually, my friend who I interviewed in the first one, he said the same thing. He's like, it's there's nowhere but to go up. But
yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, there's nowhere to go
and so
but
you're
up.
like, it's a win-win situation.
Exactly.
I do
Yeah.
nothing. If we continue, I do a little bit. People think it's better.
Yeah. So I actually feel a lot more comfortable in those situations. Yet I'm able to learn like new things, and so I loved being like just running around and doing random things.
But I think the flip side of that, I think the reason why that would be extremely unattractive to certain people are maybe like perfectionists, or they're just like, they want to do their part really well. This would be terrible for them, because they cannot, like, you're moving too quickly. Like you can't do it just when you want to build this thing really nicely. Get out of here! You go over there, and I think that person would just be crazy. And so, at least my takeaway is that it's not necessarily like you're better than him. I think it's more about, for this position, for this season in your life, and for the season of the company's life and their needs, like, is it a right fit? Because I feel like people, when they look at it's not a good fit, they take it very personally. I know I do. I suck. I bring it. I make it a topic of identity. Like, I suck. Sam sucks. Whereas I think probably the more accurate and probably the better way to look at it is to just say it's not the right
Yeah,
match.
not the right match. I agree. Yeah, and I think it's I've learned to sort of be flexible with that stuff. Sometimes I need to be a perfectionist with things that I have expertise in, um, but other times just get it done. Just somehow get it done. It doesn't need to be great. Just
Yeah.
get it done. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so being a perfectionist at everything is not an easy thing to do unless you're doing just this much
Yeah.
without sort of.
I think it could work if you can shape your environment. Like if you work in a specific job, like for example, in the tech side, like if you're so with engineers, you can kind of go up, and then as software engineers, and then you can make a decision: are you going to go the technical route? So you're just an individual contributor, but you're like they go to you only with the hardest problems. So you're like a principal architect, whatever, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Then your job scopes everything you solve so that you can let the perfectionist in you like really come
Exactly.
out.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
others who are management, they go the manager route. Like that's a very different thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's like it requires wisdom and self-reflection to know like what am I good at? Not only what am I good at, what do I want right now? Because that changes season to season. Like what am I good at? What do I want? And does this company overlap with me? And I think if you can do that and be honest with yourself, then you start limiting the amount of companies that are a good fit for you, or
Yes.
And I think that requires a massive amount of maturity, which I still struggle with.
Yeah, I struggle with that too. But I think this is a good sort of segue into startup experience because after Coupang, I left Coupang to do a legal tech
Yeah,
startup,
when
right?
was that? When was it? When did you leave Coupang?
I left Coupang 22.
2022. Okay.
Yeah, so like almost 2 years ago. And
Yeah,
then
and then we met when I got to Korea. I think in 2023, early 2023.
yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, no, yeah. So I left Coupang and I went to a small startup because I knew the founder there and I was just like, hey, I'm preparing to do my startup. I want to learn everything I can. So can you just for like 8-10 months, can I just work for you? And he's like, sure. And so I learned sort of the ropes of like how
What was like the top
startups.
one thing or one or two things that you learned from that experience that was really like a core that became like a core understanding of startups for you?
Yeah, for me it was you need to wear many hats and it's sort of an obvious thing, right? I really needed to wear many different hats. And I used to hate administrative work, like admin work, where I'm like, I had to set up an account for certain software or whatever. Like I just hated admin work, but I needed to do that at startups. And wear many different hats. Like, for instance, I needed to lead a team of engineers through the agile process and developing sprints, 2-week sprints and stuff.
Oh crap.
Yeah, so I learned everything about it, and then I just did a really bad job at it, but I did it. So that was just the biggest sort of lesson I think was that, man, I really need to do everything from like the ground up, and
And I feel like
um,
that's like a big testing of you had a hypothesis. Like you actually, you didn't talk about this here, but we talked that you had wanted to do your own thing. It wasn't. It's been quite some time, like many years, like
mhm,
maybe since Kim and Chang, maybe even before,
mhm,
right?
mhm. Yeah, I mean, and the reason why I said this was sort of this is a good segue into the startup thing was what you had said about being sort of there's a fork in the road where in terms of career where it's like you specialize in something and you have sort of a comfortable road and you're just really limiting your scope of work, and you become an expert at it, or you become more of a generalist, get out there and do stuff and learn new things and do something new. And so for me, I wanted to do the latter. I didn't like being a specialist and just having a comfortable sort of career. I wanted to learn new things. I wanted to go and make something of my own, build something of my own. And so,
Where did that come from? Like this desire to want to make something of your own?
I don't know. It's a good question. Where does that desire come from?
Like, did you have it when you were a kid? Did you
No.
see it from your parents? Like my parents, my dad was an entrepreneur.
Oh, okay.
So, I don't know if it's genetic. I
So you have
don't
the
know, just
genes
kind of
for it.
growing up. I mean, I didn't see him a lot because he was busy. He was
Yeah.
an immigrant. But
Yeah.
my brother is entrepreneurial. There's other people in my family. So like, I feel like I got it from just being kind of around it. But like, so did it come like that for you, or did it come from an inspiration somewhere else?
No, the inspiration was seeing people around me that have done, they weren't like mega successful startups, but people have done startups or have like lifestyle businesses, small businesses where they have flexibility in their times.
So
They're like,
can you, how would you define lifestyle business? Like how much revenue, like what type of, what's the pros and cons of it?
yeah, I don't know. Like a lifestyle business would be, at least the way I would define it would be like, you're making like, I don't know, 5, 10K in profits, per month, and you're sustainable. Like you can live off that, right?
Would you consider this
Comfortably.
like a side gig?
It could be a side gig, but it could also be a full-time thing. If you don't need to make tons of money and you're okay with like making 5, 10K a month, but you're living a life where you're working like 2, 3 hours a day on something, and then the rest of the time you can spend it with your family or you can do whatever you want. And having that time flexibility was very appealing to me when I saw people around me live like that.
Was
Um,
that because you were comparing it to your life, living like working crazy hours?
Maybe, yeah, maybe. But it's also because I was looking at my future as well. I wanted to see how do I want to craft my future. That was the lifestyle I wanted to live. So that's why I think that was the biggest trigger for me to try entrepreneurship. Um, um, yeah,
By the
but
way, I keep looking up because I'm like expecting our stop to show up,
our
but
stop's gonna,
I guess not. Okay, we're good. Wait,
yeah,
what,
yeah.
we're supposed to, the train was at 2:33. I think it's
2:33.
supposed to be
Yeah.
an hour. Yeah, so it's probably
Oh.
it's 3:37. So yeah.
So it
Anyway,
should be like the next stop then.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So what do you want to talk? What do you want to talk
this is,
about? End this. How do you want to end this?
no, I mean I can just cut it and we'll just continue it next time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
just keep going.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that was my inspiration, but you know, um, startups aren't easy, and so
That's a loaded. That's
yeah,
a
it's a
very loaded.
loaded question.
It's
I
like
can talk
that's like a
so much
movie
about
image.
that.
That's
Yeah.
like the start of a movie. It's like startups. It's like you have a cigarette. You're like startups aren't easy.
It's not easy.
With a shadow against your
Not
silhouette.
easy. It's like Elon Musk that I think he was like talking to some students or something at some like some talk at a university, and some student said, "Should I do a startup?" And then he literally just sits there for 30 seconds, doesn't say anything, processes it, and goes, "No," without explaining himself. Because it's not easy. It's very hard. So I respect a lot of. I now have like super duper respect for entrepreneurs and startups, small or big, founders that have sustainable companies. Um,
I mean, I think the cool thing is you did it. And not only that, like in order to do this, you have a wife and a young child. So like, was you were going through a lot with that too. And boom, that's
yeah,
our cue.
that's our stop.
That's our stop.
Yeah.
대전역.
Until next time, part 2.
To be continued.
Yeah, to be
Dun
continued.
dun dun.
Don't change channel.
Boom. All right, we're good.
All right, part 2.
So we had to pause because we got off at the our stop.
Yeah.
Took a taxi, checked into the hotel, and then we found a spot around. I don't know where, somewhere in Daejeon. I don't know where we are.
Yeah, some park.
Yeah.
But what do you call this thing? This
I don't
Korean,
know.
like
It's like a
traditional-
traditional Korean.
It's not a pagoda, right? It's.
I don't even know what a pagoda is, dude.
I don't know. I don't know what you would call this, but it's like super cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yes, here we are. Oh yeah, so where were we? I think we were talking about the startup.
Talking about
Yeah, yeah. We were talking about
nothing really interesting. I'm
you-
just not so interesting.
no.
Yeah.
I will be the decider of that.
Okay.
So, like,
The startup.
so you were thinking about it for a while. That's what we had talked about.
Yeah.
You were thinking about it for a while. Your wife had said, like, she knew about it even when you guys were dating, that you were like, hey, one day I want to start my own thing. And that's one thing that she was attracted to you,
Yes.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was attracted to you by the fact that You had ambitions. You want to do something.
I think that was the only thing she was attracted to. Anyways, yeah.
And then you went to the Kim Chang, and you did Coupang, and then you worked at that startup.
Yeah.
And then like how did you come to the point where you're like, it's go time, because like one of the things like we had talked about is like the two things, like number one is fear of getting started, like that fear leads a lot of people to delay whatever they want for a long time. And so like I'd love to kind of get into your mind of you're working at the startup, and like when did you start taking this more seriously, like thinking about like, okay, can we do this, talking to your wife like, can we do this, like
Yeah, I mean, that fear I think is real, and I think that's always been on my mind. The fear to just get out and start, right? Because I didn't know what I was doing, and there was so much that I didn't know, and there was so much that
people could say like, well, like, you can't say that you didn't know what you're, well, a third party could be like, you were working at a startup for a year, you worked at a tech company, you must have a good idea. I guess that's what they could say.
Yeah, compared to people that didn't work at wasn't exposed to any startup experience before starting.
I guess I'm just trying to provide the outside perspective, but the person in the arena, the insider perspective, you were feeling that you didn't know what you were doing, or you were like kind of excited to finally start?
Yeah, I mean, I still felt like, so at the startup I did learn a lot in terms of how like startups generally operate, how they sort of move. They move quickly and focus on a single task. Um, um, all of that I learned, but at the same time, I felt like there was so much more that I had to learn before starting my own.
Why did you feel that?
Because it's like with anything, like there's always a learning curve, and at first, when you learn something, when you're exposed to something, you learn a lot, right? And then it gets fun, but at some point, it's like in order to get to the next level, it's like you need to know so much more. And so I learned the basics of how a startup operates at the startup that I had worked for, but there was always still that deep fear, or deep inside, there was this small fear, am I going to do this on my own, kind of thing?
I see.
And that was the point where I had met my co-founder, like around that time. And fortunately, like he was great. Like fortunately, he had a lot of experience operating startups. He was a serial entrepreneur, and so
Did you from the get-go want a co-founder?
um, I, I wanted to work with somebody that had more experience than me.
I see.
But I didn't think I was gonna find somebody that was gonna join me.
Why not?
I don't know. First of all, it's legal tech. I talk about legal tech with people, and they're just like, with even startup people, and they just don't really know what it is, or they find it boring because it's legal.
What kind of things did they find exciting?
I don't know. Like, I mean,
Like social
they're
media?
like social media, just not law. Like health tech. I mean, it was kind of people that were interested in health tech and things like that. But just law, legal tech was just so new at that time, and so. Um, and another thing, when I talk to people, they said, which is true, they said it's hard to sell to lawyers, and so legal tech is a very tough industry for startups, which I found to be true. And so yeah, I was fortunate enough to get in touch with my co-founder, and he helped to sort of prevent some of the pitfalls that first-time founders could fall into.
Any come to mind? Or what's the first few that come to mind?
Uh, I guess I'll put it this way. Not necessarily pitfalls, but he was able to teach me um, how to think like a startup founder. So, for instance, like sales. I knew zero about sales or customers development. I knew nothing about it. But there were certain established sort of methods and models that you use for sales and customer development, and he knew all of that. And so I guess not going back to pitfalls. Like, I guess it's not pitfalls, avoiding pitfalls, but he helped to create sort of guideposts and frameworks for me to work under. And that helped a lot. Unfortunately, it didn't work out between us, but it was a really great experience working with him because I learned so much and I developed so much as not just like a startup founder that ultimately failed, but as a person too.
What
I
is the
think he
definition
really
of failure?
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
first-time founders generally fail, right? So I don't feel bad about it. I don't feel bad about it at all. And I confidently tell people, yeah, I mean, I didn't work out for me. But maybe the second time around,
Well, I mean,
things will work out better.
why don't you kind of provide more details of like what were you trying to build?
We were trying to build a software, and that's another sort of what we were trying to build. I think was another mistake, looking back. And what we were trying to build was too big, too much. So we're trying to build a software that automates a lot of the monotonous, like tedious tasks in the lawyer workflow, right? So, for example, legal research, and analysis and drafting. We're trying to automate those three things to the extent possible. We're using current technologies like Gen AI. But it was just, we were trying to bite too big of the pie.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
looking back, if I were to do the same startup again, I would focus on one little aspect of it. Like, even within research, I would do something that's like a component of research and legal workflow, just one small component of it, and do that well before expanding to other things.
So that's really interesting because like I feel you're right. Like first time founders want to tackle the whole thing. Like what led you to initially when you first started, because your co-founder is not in legal, so the product idea is all from you, right? Because you have the experience in the legal world. But what do you think led you to want to do the whole enchilada, like do it all at once? And then I want to compare that to what now led you to the current conclusion that you're like, not only am I going to do one of them, even with that one, I would go super narrow, or another way to say it is niche.
Niche, yeah. I would go very, very niche.
Like, yeah, what led you to that initial big, and then what convinced you otherwise?
Well, because I was a lawyer for like 13, 14 years, I knew the pain points. I knew there were so many inefficiencies that could be tackled. And when ChatGPT came out, I just thought that it was a technology that could do all three. Like, just leveraging ChatGPT, it could do all three: research, analysis, and drafting.
So in hindsight, do you think ChatGPT could have done all three?
No. In hindsight, I don't think it could. It could later on, but the current technology now.
And you were using GPT 3.5, GPT 4?
Yeah, it was like 3.5 at that point. Yeah, 3.5.
Yeah.
Where there were massive hallucinations, and there were like, news articles about lawyers that filed court documents drafted purely using ChatGPT, and there were like all these fake cases on there, and he got sanctioned.
Right. So, and just to be clear, when you said you use the term hallucination, in case our viewers don't know,
right.
Hallucination is when an AI says something, so you ask him like something, and then they basically make it up.
Yeah, it's all made up. So for example, in the legal aspect, give me a patent infringement case that involves like this party or this type of technology, and it'll make up
Yeah.
the case. It'll even make up the case name. It'll be like, oh,
So it's super convincing
yeah, it's
to the
like
average person.
yeah, it's very convincing. And I think there is some bias there. That, people talk about like the bias that ChatGPT sort of generates, and just to make you feel good or to convince you, to persuade you that this is right. Like it'll make up all these cases that you look up and it's not there.
Yeah, and there was that famous story. What it happened in New York?
New York, yeah, it's a New York lawyer.
Yeah, could you talk a little bit about that? Like what
Yeah,
happened
yeah.
to that lawyer?
So that lawyer got sanctioned. I don't know if he got disbarred, but I don't know but he got sanctioned, at least like a suspension or something like that. And his image, like I honestly think his career is pretty much ruined because of the image. Because it was like a high profile, like it was on the New York Times, and all lawyers knew it. All lawyers knew his name, and so which is unfortunate. I think he just got unlucky.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but I don't want to get into like professional responsibility for lawyers. He shouldn't have done that.
Yeah,
But
basically, he was doing a case,
yeah.
and I think in something he referenced ChatGPT, or he used ChatGPT, and ChatGPT referenced a certain case
Yeah,
that
ChatGPT reference
didn't exist.
Yeah, not just one case, but like 10 cases or something,
Shoot.
to support his propositions in his brief, and his arguments, support his arguments.
So
in the
he's
brief.
like, point 1, point 2, point 3,
Yeah.
and refer to this case, and they're all fake.
Yeah, so he'll just give an argument, right? He'll state an argument and say, ChatGPT, find case laws that
no.
support this proposition. And it gave a list of like 10 case law, and he didn't review it. He just filed it with the court. And the judge, the presiding judge, he kind of calls him up and is like, hey, he calls him into a hearing. He's like, hey, I looked up these cases and they don't exist. So it's quite funny, but at the same time, I feel so bad for him.
And I think this is like another great example. Like, people, it's so easy to, as a third party, just be like, what an idiot.
Yeah.
What an idiot.
Yeah.
But I have this like tendency to always be able to empathize with the person,
Yeah.
or at least sympathize with the person. I mean,
Right.
He didn't do everything wrong. Like, he was trying to use new technology. He didn't fully understand, but still, like, the fact that he was trying was cool. I mean, yes, you kind of wish that he would have checked it. He would have had some safeguards. But to be honest, like, ChatGPT was available to everyone. And I think what really ChatGPT did was it sparked the imagination. Like, this, and we talked about this earlier, well, on the cab ride, not here, but what AI does in these amazing technologies, whether it's AI with art, AI with text, your expectation is like down here, and suddenly you see it and it's like, boom, it pushes your expectation, it blows your mind. And then this is where the mistake happens. The person who's not trained in this, who doesn't understand technology very well, who's not building product, they kind of say, oh, if it did this with my simple question, I could extrapolate this and it does this at everything, when in fact that is completely false.
It's not.
It is completely false. And so they extrapolate too much and they expect too much of it. And this just happened to happen in a professional setting. But and then they don't do, and it doesn't go well. And people and lawyers who are very hesitant about using technology, then they point at that New York Times article and they're like, see, this is why we should never adopt AI. We're not. And I'm like, that's not the right answer either. Like, and I think we talked about it. I think the best answer is to not believe in the hype that it will automate everything away in the beginning, but also to not believe the opposite, thinking we can't use this. It's like somewhere in the middle. And I think with technology like this, the expectation management is so crucial, because it's just like because you're molding public perception. So if you pitched it differently, like we talked about this as like just helping you do your existing workflow, but make you 20% more efficient, and we won't even talk about AI. It's not even AI. It's just we figured out a way to automate certain parts of what you do today. It takes 1 hour today. We'll help you bring it down to 40 minutes. We'll save you 20 minutes. You bill by X dollars an hour. We're saving you Y dollars. Here's this product.
Yeah.
But once again, this is all in hindsight. And
and that's why like I feel bad for this guy because I think he was doing the right thing. Maybe he was being super lazy, but still he was trying to use new technology. It just dang it.
I agree. I mean, it's I think his intentions were good, and he was experimenting with the technology, but you know, he should have reviewed it.
Yeah.
But anyways,
And you figured it out pretty quick too that it was hallucinating pretty badly.
yeah, I found out very quick. It's like it hallucinates. It hallucinated most of the time, which is really funny because it gave like, I remember like saying, oh, you know, I remember doing the same thing, like, oh, this argument, find some case laws, and it hallucinates with like the names of the case law was really funny too. It was like literally party zebra versus party monkey, and I was just like, what? You know, maybe that was because it was like GPT-3 or whatever, but you know, I was immediately able to tell, right, that this is fake. But you know, going back to sort of what you were just saying about the technology being, you know, you need to be able to sort of slowly get into it, you know, expect it to improve your workflow or improve your life like 10-20%, not like entirely automate everything. I I like I like to analogize ChatGPT with an F1 car. The technology itself is amazing. It's like this really powerful technology that you can use. But if you're not an F1 driver and you don't know how to drive an F1 car, then you're gonna crash or you're just not gonna be able to drive it. So, you know, I think the world is just not there yet to be able to use it properly. I think very few people know how to do it.
I think
properly,
what you mean is like in a professional kind of high stakes setting.
High stakes professional setting,
Yeah. Like for example, my wife, when I first learned about ChatGPT, she was writing thank you cards.
Right.
So like I think kind of low stakes,
Yeah.
Monotonous kind of things. Like she wanted some ideas to help write different things, and
Sure.
English is not her native language.
Yeah.
So I think kind of low stakes, it seems okay.
Right.
But in high stakes,
Yeah.
like you really should have a whole pit crew, and like maybe, or people who know.
Yeah, because really, like the engine, ChatGPT engine itself, and legal tech, like in the U.S., is extremely active. The market is really active. There are a lot of like active players there, and when I talk to people, they're always talking about it's like a really strong engine, but you need to be able to, in a professional setting, high stakes professional settings, especially in legal, right?
Yeah.
You need to be able to, you need to be able to put layer over layer over layer, and that's a lot of work in order to be able to use that efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I mean, I think it's
Well, I think at some point maybe we should do a follow-up where we can go. I feel like we can spend like hours actually on this of like the lessons that you learned, because I think that's what I really respected about you. Like you just went all in. You're just like you're like, how much runway do I have? I think I think you were planning like a year of runway or something.
Yeah.
Somewhere like that.
Yeah.
But you talked about it with your wife. You're like, hey, I think we can do this. I want to do it. I've been saving up. Let's do it. And then like you went after it. Like you hired devs, and I think like you learned so much. But now like the lights going down. So if our viewers, whoever, we don't even know who the viewers are. It might just be you and me.
0 viewers.
There will at least be 2 viewers. It will be at least you and me.
It's your wife and my wife.
My wife probably won't view it. She's busy right now.
Oh, okay.
But your wife, yeah.
I would probably view it.
But so yeah, but I would love to do a follow up. But given that the light's going down, I would like to kind of wrap this time up of like, what is like, what are like 1 or 2 nuggets that you walked away? Because you said you often do a reflection. You're like, dude, I learned so much.
Yeah.
And you have this great attitude of always reflecting and being thankful of how much you grew.
Right.
What is it for this experience?
This experience, 2 things, right? So one is, and I don't like saying this, but I think age is a factor. I think your sort of responsibilities and status in life is important for entrepreneurship, whether you want to pursue entrepreneurship or do a startup. I, when I look back, I wish I wish I started when I was like 20, early 20s.
Because
Because now that because while I was doing my startup, there's a lot of financial risk to it, right? While I was doing my startup, I had my son, and when I had my son, I started to lean more towards stability naturally. Yeah, financial stability.
yeah.
And I kind of thought about, what if I still worked at Coupang, or what if I was still at Kim Chang, or, and I had sort of a stable salary. I'd be less anxious. I'd be less sort of mentally stressed, and
I think that's an interesting point,
things like
because
that.
like you're like the startup in itself. There's so much anxiety. There's so much
Yeah.
self-doubt. There's so much like this kinds of things. Like we talked a lot about that. But added on top of that is this like I have to be responsible for another human being. So it's like I feel like just getting up every night to do every day to do this is hard
Yeah.
enough. But you have this additional thing sitting on top of you, which is like you got to take care of the family. Like you're the breadwinner for the family.
Exactly. Like financially. Like I'm focused on financially,
Yeah.
right? And so if I was younger and I was single, man, I would have kept going. I would have kept going. I would have somehow made it, tried another year or two until something happened. But I came to a point where I started to really run out of runway, and I decided that I was going to close shop because my son was sick at that point. He was suffering from cancer, and and all this stuff happened, and so I was like, I think it was selfish. I thought that I was being selfish
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
pursue
That's
my
hard.
own dream when I should
Yeah.
provide
Yeah.
a more stable environment for
Yeah.
my family. And so I think age has a big factor. So I don't, I'm
Or
not
maybe
discouraging
maybe like life stage.
life stage, maybe. Yeah, yeah.
'Cause, yeah.
Because like I don't want to discourage people that are like 40 or whatever,
Yeah.
50 from doing a startup. I think you can do it, but
It is definitely a variable.
but it is a factor that I think people should at least
Yeah.
consider.
Yeah.
Um,
And also like a big thing once again it was Atomic Habit or the other book on habits. Like studies have found like people who think in advance what are the obstacles that they will face,
Mhm.
and they talk about it and they write it down, they're more likely to, when they face that obstacle or a similar obstacle, they're able to overcome because they have thought about it. It's not the
Mhm.
first time thinking about it. So I think you bring up a good point for those who are interested in doing this. It's like, cool, if you have, a spouse and kids and stuff, think through how are you gonna deal with this.
Yeah, yeah, and that was a mistake on my part too. When I did it, when I started, I didn't really think through it deeply.
Because you were just like really excited.
Yeah,
to
I was
finally
just
get started.
excited to just get
Yeah,
started,
dude, you've
right?
been waiting so long.
Yeah, and then the second thing, just to wrap up, the second thing is that I learned from this is that I don't think my entrepreneurial bug will ever go away. So I think I will do like another startup as like a solopreneur, but on the side.
Yeah,
On the
yeah, we
side.
talked about yeah.
Like I can't like, because of my sort of life circumstances, I can't go all in again. But I will always have that entrepreneurial bug where I will probably do something on the side, and I have some ideas for that too. And so
Yeah.
that's what I learned about myself, is that, man, I failed my startup, but I still want to do it again.
I don't,
I don't know if that'll ever disappear.
I cringe when you say failed. I don't know, man. I don't look at it that way, bro. I don't look at it as failed. I think it took incredible guts to do this. I think it was amazing to see your wife so supportive of this because she knew it was your dream.
Mm-hmm.
And even though she probably had her own worries, she still was supporting you. You did it. Like, you did it. You shut it down because you thought it was the right thing to do. And how is that a failure though? You know what I mean? Like, okay, so then we have to look at the definition of failure. Is failure that it didn't become a multi-billion-dollar unicorn? Okay, that's fine. But then we have to say, like, there's there's freaking, so many failures then. It's like then only like 0.001% can count as successes. Like I feel like that definition of failure is it'll like be devastating to the ecosystem. Because it's hard enough to start. So I don't know. I personally think that yours was a massive success. I think it's so incredible. I think it is inspiring. That's one of the reasons why I want to record it, even though it's getting super dark. I mean, that's one of the things that like I wanted to share your story because I mean it's so like admirable. Like I admire you to go all out and do it. And the thing is, like, it's not only that you weren't just like money. Like you were using it, but you were learning. Like the learning per dollar spend was, I feel like, quite high because you had this habit from your previous jobs to reflect and like take the time to be like, what did I learn from this? So I feel like the next thing that you do, and with AI as the cost goes down, there was this really cool idea. Someone said like, I have usually, like this guy would jot down business ideas on a notepad, but he would never have time to do it. But we talked about AI agents like ChatGPT can't take action yet. Like they can't go send an email for you, but they soon will be able to. So there was this idea of a bot that's like the validator bot, the discovery bot, where you give it a list of your ideas and you tell it to like go try out, validate, and then it'll come back the next day and provide a report, and you look through it, you're like, kill that, I like that, let's invest $5,000 more in this one, let's keep going. And so I think and I think that people don't understand that, but I think the core of that, for someone to, even if that becomes a product, people still won't do it if they don't want to be a failure. And that's why I think like it's so important to redefine like what is failure and success. I think your massive success, you learned a ton, and your goal was not to like hurt humanity. Yours was like you have a passion to help lawyers and help them be more effective. And if that happens, lawyers can do much more jobs, and more people can get lawyer services, legal services, and I think that makes the world like a better. I don't know. Some people who hate lawyers, they might say that negative, but I think in general, like we need more people to want to use these technologies to solve the world's problems and to help humanity. And that's why I think it's like such a wonderful thing. And I hope that you would, because you have that on repeat in your head, like, oh, every time you tell the story, you're like, oh, it's a failure. Dude, I hope, please, that you reprogram that and be like, dude, I learned so much. It was a success. It didn't have the intended results that you wanted, but it's also like, you learned so much, and you're going to be so much more ready for the next one. And yeah, dude, I think it's so awesome what you did, man. I'm like super proud of the fact that you did this.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a different perspective that I think I'll sort of hang on to, because I did learn a lot. I developed a lot, and I'm more confident the next time I do it.
Yeah.
And I'll be doing it smaller scale, but I'll be happy doing that, and I think I'll definitely have a better chance to make something a little more sustainable next time. So
yeah, well, thanks for hanging out, Tommy.
No, dude, I love hanging out with you.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, man.
Now we gotta cut this.
Yeah,
we gotta go
it's
get some
getting
dinner.
dark. Yeah, let's get some dinner. Okay.
All right, peace.
Peace.
We're basically speaking to us because we're the viewers.
Yeah, I know, we're the only viewers. Plus my wife. She's gonna make so much fun of me.